We actually had in our previous home solar panels anyway, and we saw the very real benefit of that and wanted to do the same thing in our new home. Joju did the original installation for us in our old home. That was August or September 2014. Our experience with Joju to start with was very good. Did a bit of research around the company. Essentially, it was a spin-off of research done, I think it was at Oxford, into things like alternative energy, PV, that sort of stuff. And although we did look at for that first installation, we looked at other potential suppliers, installers. Joju knew what they were talking about. They knew what they were talking about and would find an answer if it was needed. Once everything was in place, it happened very well. It was installed relatively quickly, commissioned, and we never had an ounce of trouble with that install. The other thing is, they were really nice people to work with. It wasn't so much of, well, here, we've got 18 solar panels, we'll stick them on the roof for you. It was more about, what actually is it you want? What did you want to get out of having solar panels on your roof? I guess in those days, it wasn't actually an easy install either, because our roof had skylight windows. So they had to be built around that element of the roof. But it all worked out well. And back in the day, we had the feed-in tariff rather than the SEG. So we were very, very happy being able to use electricity generated ourselves, export some of it, and I hate to say this, a degree of righteousness about being green. And back in 2014, that was actually the motivation, trying to become more green. Energy costs weren't exorbitant. There was nothing on the horizon that suggested that it could be. It was, we need to do something for the environment, and that's what we did. Before we even decided where we were going to move, we made a list of things we needed to have in the house. Top of that list was solar panels with battery and a heat pump. Again, green ethic, trying to drive it. Obviously, at that time, energy prices started to do very weird things. So that was also a consideration, I've got to admit, trying to insulate ourselves from shock rises in energy prices. We're very tied to how well are our panels doing, if I can put it like that. I've got an iPad set up in the kitchen, which is dedicated to looking at the performance of the PV system. Probably more collaborative for two reasons. One, we actually had to ask our developer for permission to put panels up, because they were still building around us and they were still trying to market the properties. And that actually in many ways drove the type of installation we had. The other thing is our house is a sort of L-shaped with a sort of east-west split. So in the morning, one face of the house gets good sun. In the evening, afternoon, the other side of the house gets a good dose of sun. And during the day, both sides benefit as the sun moves around. So the design was always going to be a split design. I had some weird ideas about putting them on our garage roof, and even over two bay windows, we've got a small little roof, for want of a better term, which would probably take one or two panels. So I even thought, why don't we stick them on there as well? Then we had a survey. A lovely girl came and did a survey, spent a lot of time looking at our house and looking at my ideas. She was very good because she didn't laugh at the stupidity of some of them. But we ended up with quite a nice little hybrid around what I thought it would look like. And again, while that survey was being done, I was being asked, what's your biggest concern about electricity? What's your future look like in terms of electricity need? Which was good, because that opened up the conversation about us buying an electric vehicle, which we more or less decided at the same sort of time. But it was in the forefront of our mind that the next step in our green journey, if you like, would be to have an EV. So we knew that our house, for example, in the month of February 2023, averaged about 22 kilowatts a day. And we had other data from January and a bit of December that we could share as well. And it was averaging at around 23, 24 kilowatts. Now, obviously, that's wintertime usage. So we've got the heating on from a heat pump. So that actually helped cement some of the design ideas. I know it influenced the size of the panels that were recommended. I actually did a Trustpilot review, and I think I said in there that Joju have really stepped up the game in project management because everything went smoothly. As soon as the survey was done and we signed up, I was introduced to our project manager, Dan, who took us through all the necessary bits and pieces around scheduling deliveries, stuff like that. Also looked after a lot of the paperwork stuff. The actual commissioning went very smoothly. He spent a lot of time talking through how the system worked. It was very good indeed. So the installation we had was actually an in-roof arrangement for the PV tiles. And the number of people who've stopped us in the street and said, that looks amazing. And I have to agree with them that the job that was done by the install team, very neat, very tidy, no wasted conduit runs or anything like that, minimal disruption on the outside aspect of the house, looked brilliant. Very, very happy with the quality of the install. We're doing brilliantly. In theory, I think we get a peak output of 6.8 kilowatts. So far, we've been able to achieve about 5.7, 5.8. That was back in August and September last year, not long after we actually had them installed. I wasn't expecting anything like that because of the split system, half of it on the east, half of it on the west. But actually, it happens really well. Anybody who asks, they get a link to the Joju website and a phone number. The reason being, for all of the good things that we've talked about, the way they approach the opportunity, that collaborative element, the fact that they're not just interested in sticking panels on a roof, it's more about having a little bit more of what the customer wants and needs and what the design can be that best satisfies that. And I get very frustrated because you see loads of adverts on things like Instagram and other social media sites saying, we can put 12 panels on your roof with a battery for whatever the price, and we can do it next week. And I'm sat here thinking, how do you know that's the right amount of panels you need? How big's the battery? How's that been sized? Who's actually doing some of that homework for you? And you can do it in a week. I do think there are quite a few, I wouldn't say cowboys, but people who are sitting close to the edge. It's also about how efficient the panels are, what the longevity of them is. So I always direct people to somebody who I think know what they're talking about. I mean, their pedigrees in that environment. If we move tomorrow, heaven forbid, we've not got over the last one, we would knock on Joju's door and say, what can you do? We wouldn't go anywhere else. And we've done it twice. Been happy both times.